So I'm sure you guys have heard a lot about catching your horses, catching them from the pasture, catching them to go to their training session, or catching them for grooming or for the vet. I want to show you guys a little bit different approach that I take, and I'm going to call it inviting your horse. So I invite my horses to participate with me, and what this means is I will approach to a certain distance. So it depends on the horse a little bit, um, but usually, I mean, it's a distance that they're comfortable with. So typically about this distance that you're going to see in this video. So I'd say, 4, 5, 6 feet. And then I will kind of invite them to participate with me. And the way that works is I might look at them, I might kind of call their name a little bit, and then I just wait and I make sure to and keep my energy very low. I don't stare them directly down. I don't approach them head on. And I always make sure and reinforce them for engaging with me in some way. So in this video, you're going to see lots of scratches. I scratch them for engaging with me. But in a lot of times, like when it's a training session and I'm inviting them to participate in a training session with me, I will give them some food at that point. That's the start of our training session. And here's another great video example of what that looks like to invite a horse. So here I'm inviting River to come participate with me. You can see how I walk off-centered from the front of her. I don't approach her straight on, and I'm kind of keeping my gaze lower and just really, taking the energy and the pressure off, the pressure to engage, the pressure to do anything. And I kind of called her name a little bit, and then I just waited. And she came and accepted my invitation, if we want to think of it that way. She accepted my invitation and approached me and stood with me, and then I just started scratching on her. I was basically like, thank you for accepting the invitation. I'm going to make this super reinforcing for being with me. I make sure to take the to not always turn this invitation into something. And this is really important for horses that are just getting started, looking at a training session as a choice and something they have control over. They are not the victim here. It's really important to disengage before the horse really wants to disengage. So I stop and I kind of sit back and I say, you're free to go. And I do that a lot with my horses where we don't actually do anything. I just invite them, give them something really good, maybe do a tiny little short reinforcing training session, and then we disengage. And if they want to, they could re-engage with me at a later point. I might re-invite them. But this is something that I really encourage you guys to practice, and really encourage horse owners and caregivers to practice, is inviting the horse to participate in the activity that you want to do with them. And it starts with the whole training session, the choice, the control, giving the horse consent. It all starts when you first arrive. It doesn't start in the training session at some point. It doesn't start, after you've put the halter on. It doesn't start when, sometimes it doesn't even, you could say it doesn't even really start once you've gotten into the pasture. If they acknowledge your presence long before you arrive into the pasture, then really it started well before. A lot of my horses recognize my truck, they recognize my voice, and so they will be actively kind of looking for me and engaging with me well before I've approached their pasture. They're kind of like, what do I need to do to get this lady to come over here? And so they're actually inviting me to come participate with them, and I love to see that. However, a lot of times in the very beginning of changing our relationship with our horse and changing the level and the type of engagement we have with our horse and how much choice and how much control they have in the experience, we're dealing with horses that have that learning history of not having a choice, right? Where being caught by the human is aversive and unpleasant, or it means that they're being taken away from their herd, or it means that they're going to be ridden. And so they won't choose to participate. That is not something they're going to choose. So you could say, okay, this is great, Adele, but I could be sitting there for like 5 hours before my horse would ever choose to engage with me. This is where we're going to start with baby steps. So your horse might just look at you, and you could toss them a piece of food, or you could give them a little bit of alfalfa, or you could just hang out with them for a while until they get a little bit closer, and then you toss some food and give them something reinforcing. And horses that like scratches, that's a wonderful reinforcing thing that you can do. So if they engage with you, they get lots of scratches and get their itchy spot scratched. This is really great during shedding season. However, a lot of horses don't like to be touched, or they find it aversive, or they're just not itchy. So food is a great option for this. So you're going to start the training process to teach them how to engage with you, to teach them that engaging with you is a positive experience now and they have a choice in it well before they ever reach you. So you're going to, my recommendation is that you're going to approach, you're going to stop a certain distance away. Again, this really depends on the horse. Horses that are comfortable with people, you can do this much closer, but I would never get, even with really comfortable horses, I still stop about 6 feet away at least. And they know I'm there. They can see me. They can see me. They can feel me. They can hear me. They can smell me. They know I'm there. If they want to engage, that is plenty close. You could even say better yet, it's like 12 to 20 feet, right? They can still smell me, see me, hear me, all of that. They know that I'm there. When you're dealing with a horse, though, that really doesn't know how to engage or doesn't want to engage or is very fearful of people, it might be much further. It might be, can you just approach their stall? And you might start to see calming signals. This is something we need to pay attention to. Is my horse showing indications that they are a little bit worried or stressed when I begin to approach? That's where we need to start with this process. And what I would say is, if you get to that point where the horse is showing a little bit of nervousness, a little bit of worry, a little bit of wanting to move away, or any type of calming signals or displacement behaviors, go ahead and stop there and pause and wait. Make sure and take nice inhales and exhales. Drop your energy, meaning look away, relax your shoulders, have no agenda, no order of events that happens today. We don't have to catch the horse. We don't have to do anything. We are just standing here, minding our own business. And if the horse looks at you or engages in some way, or even takes a step towards you, even better yet, go ahead. You could even click and toss them some food. You need to do this in a non-threatening way, a non-scary way. You could put a food pan on the ground, so maybe with you bring a food pan and then set that on the ground and make kind of a clear indication that you dropped food into that pan, and then walk away from the pan to allow the horse to come up to the pan. And then repeat this process until you're able to start getting the horse to notice you coming and being like, oh, I like this person and this is awesome when I engage, when I acknowledge her, and when I approach, when I accept the invitation, something reinforcing happens, something exciting happens. And, again, when you have a really fearful horse, or a horse that has a really long history of it being an aversive experience once they're caught, this may take some time. And you need to be really patient with it. You might not be able to fully approach them for a while. And again, we're never fully approaching them. I want them to meet us halfway. That's another way you can think of it, is you start the conversation and they're meeting you halfway, or you start the invitation and then they have to accept it, right? So there's a halfway point. You're never really going all the way to the horse and then catching them. You are saying, hey, I'd like to do something today. Do you want to participate? And they'll say yes or they'll say no. And a lot of times, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, they say no a lot in the beginning. This is a little bit of an ego, it's kind of hurts our ego a little bit. It's a little bit of a bummer. It's an emotional thing. Trust me though, if you take this approach and you are really patient and you don't force them to do anything, they will start to accept your invitation really quickly, and they will start to say yes a lot, especially if you're following up with positive reinforcement training sessions where they have choice and control and they can walk away and they have multiple reinforcement access points. Hey, the food you have, stuff like that, enrichment activities. You will begin to predict something awesome and exciting and highly reinforcing to them, and so they are more often than not going to accept your invitation. Then what starts to happen is, further down the road, you can actually use this as a gauge for how your horse is feeling that day, or whether or not it's a good day to do a training session in this way or that way. Most of my horses, like 99.99% of the time, accept my invitation. However, there are times where my horses say not today, and they're having a bad day, or they don't feel well, or something else is more worrying or exciting or interesting in their environment, and it's okay. They don't have to train that moment. Most of the time, if I come back in 30 minutes to an hour, they will then opt in. So it doesn't have to be that it's never again that day. It could be further down the road, meaning like a couple hours down the road, or even you could try again in 15 to 30 minutes. Maybe just at that moment wasn't the right moment. And This is how we operate too. And so I feel like this is a really a thing that we can be respectful of and give our horses this option. Now, of course, I'm going to mention this before it's said. Um, emergencies happen. There will be times where you have to take the choice away and you do have to go catch your horse. There will be times where they don't have the option to not be caught. That's okay. That will happen. But in a training session, in a non-emergency session, it's important to give them control over it and make it reinforcing and give them choice, because then in the future, when it is an emergency, they will be easy to catch. One, because now most of the time it's reinforcing, and two, they will really learn to trust you and trust the process, so they'll again be easier to catch and they'll be calmer during this said emergency. And then three, the emergency situation is less likely to become this huge event that makes it even harder for you to catch them in the future. So there's a lot of benefits to taking this approach most of the time. Again, maybe it's not every time, maybe it's not all the time, but most of the time. So I'd love to hear your experiences with teaching your horses that they can accept an invitation and showing them that they do have a choice, and trying this approach. Try asking them if they want to engage and try inviting them to participate in a training session with you.